Hi, I'm Delano, and this is the Becoming Journal. I wrote this piece during the snowstorm and wanted to share. It's called Staying With It. More on embodiment, pain, and choosing community in time of collapse. I'm back after another hiatus you probably didn't notice. The past few weeks have been quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful, but was necessary. Snowmageddon kept me inside for days, long enough for my body to feel heavy and my mind to start pacing, long enough for thought to stretch without interpretation, long enough for stillness to force reckoning. Outside, the world feels increasingly unstable, with power outages across the city, people without heat, and mutual aid networks forming in real time. Small talk has morphed into daily conversations about economic collapse, rising authoritarianism, environmental disregard, and unfettered capitalism, no longer abstract, but immediate. The language of what if has turned to what now. Watching people show up for one another reminds me that despair is not strategy. Defeatism will not save us. Retreating into numbness, comfort, and complacency won't save us either. What I'm witnessing instead is care. Improvised, imperfect, relational. People organizing not because they're hopeful, but because they refuse to abandon one another. And still, I struggled to produce. I didn't want to write something pretty while everything feels brittle. I didn't want to document my inner life as it exists apart from the conditions shaping us all. I didn't want to offer comfort that felt disconnected from reality or insight that bypassed fear. What I'm learning is that tending to the inner world is not separate from collective survival. It's one of the ways we remain capable of it. As the storm kept me inside, my body began speaking more clearly. The pain I've learned to manage became louder. Fatigue settled in deeper, and a sense of unsafety lived not just in my thoughts, but in my joints, in my breath, in my posture. The longer I stayed physically still, the harder it became to live exclusively in my head. I've relied on my mind for a long time. It's where I learned to make sense of complexity, to survive contradiction, to translate experience into language. It's how I've navigated systems that were not built to hold me. It's how I've built community, offered care, stayed oriented. But I'm also seeing how often intellect has been an escape hatch, how easily I've justified misalignment because it made sense, how often I've stayed in spaces that felt mentally nourishing while my body quietly resisted. That resistance has been asking for my attention, not my analysis. Lately, I've been thinking about the social change ecosystem map and how everyone responds to crisis in different ways. Some people are on the front lines, meeting immediate needs. Some are builders, creating infrastructure where institutions have failed. Some are caregivers and healers, tending to grief and nervous systems stretched too thin. Some are disruptors, willing to take risks that shape the status quo. And some of us are weavers and storytellers. We connect people, ideas, and memory. We sit with uncertainty long enough to give it language. We help others locate themselves inside the chaos, not as spectators, but as participants with agency. This work does not always look urgent. It doesn't always photograph well, but without it, movements fracture, burnout accelerates. People forget why they're doing what they're doing. Naming this has helped me soften towards my own pace. It also helped me understand why I keep going quiet instead of forcing output, why deleting my TikTok right when it was starting to pick up didn't feel confident, just compulsive. Delete, re-download, delete, again. I know the math. I post every day across every platform, and within months, I'm legible as a spiritual guide selling one-on-one mentorships and retreats to Bali. I know my words help people because they tell me so. Comments from internet strangers saying they felt seen, DMs saying they needed to hear what I just said. And still, something resists turning my becoming into content. I feel uneasy with the surveillance baked into these platforms, with how easily inner life becomes data, momentum, currency. I don't know how to want visibility without wanting safety. I don't know how to want money without worrying what it asks of me. I want ease and slowness and a life that isn't held together by shifting money between accounts or choosing between stability and mutual aid. Stepping back wasn't avoidance. It was an attempt to stay in relationship with the work without disappearing inside it. This season has been about learning to trust my body, even when it hurts. About listening without immediately trying to fix or justify. About letting fear, grief, and loneliness exist without turning them into conclusions or content. About noticing how often I self-surveil, anticipating judgment, and choosing to stay anyway. I don't feel resolved. I don't feel certain about anything, but I feel honest. I know this. We need to remain human in the midst of this collapse, to feel what is happening without becoming immobilized by it, to imagine something better while staying rooted in the present. We need to understand the reflection is not apathy and that rest is not disengagement. For me, that work begins with embodiment. During this season, I'm focusing on staying in relationship with my body, even when it feels fragile, on rejecting fear that makes isolation tempting, on working on trusting that slowness is not failure, and that becoming myself more fully is not a distraction from the work, but part of it. If you're listening to this and feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or unsure of where you fit, I want to offer this to you gently. You do not need to have the answer. You don't need to carry everything. And you don't need to harden to survive. Pay attention to where your body is asking for care. Notice where you're being called to show up. Ask yourself what role you are meant to play in this season, and let it change when it needs to. Winter is still winter. The world is asking very hard questions, and each of us is being invited quietly to decide how we will stay with it. With love, Delano. Thank you for listening. Take what resonates leave what doesn't.